Just different.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to a different podcast.
What's up, y'all? I'm Lou. People know me as Lou. People know me as Alex. People know me as Pinner. I'm a man of many names, but I'm excited to be here and see where this podcast goes. First episode.
Yeah, and I'm Colin. Most people call me Rungy, especially around athletics. That's kind of my main name, but if I go by whatever you want to call me. So I'm good to go. And Pinner, why don't you kind of lead us off on kind of your background and where you're at?
Yeah, I grew up in Kansas City, a longtime Royals and Chiefs fan. I still am a kind of a fanboy of the Chiefs in the sense that um, I worked for the Royals for a long time. So I was actually a clubby and bat boy for 5 summers, and I saw a side of that I could never. I mean, I learned so much from it, but when you work in a situation like that, you learn so much, but you can't go back to where you were before. So I ended up playing college baseball where I met Colin Runge and played at Scottsdale Community College, repping the Fighting Artichokes. Um, Ended up playing at Mississippi State after that and finished my career my last year at Emporia State, where I graduated with my degree in psychology.
Yeah, my background, as Pinner kind of touched on, we met playing for the Fighting Artichokes down in Scottsdale, Arizona. And for me, just growing up, baseball was kind of always central to what I did. It was something that I fell in love with at a very early age. And it was something that I wanted to do forever. And so that's kind of, baseball has given me kind of my path in life and guided out some of the things that have happened. I had the unique opportunity of going to 4 colleges, so I don't know how many people can say that, but I made a pit stop at Scottsdale where I met Lou and went back up north to Chemeketa Community College in Salem, Oregon, popped up and played at the University of Portland in Oregon, and then I went a little bit south back to Salem and played for Western Oregon. There's a long story to it all, but I couldn't be more grateful for that ride and that opportunity. And I ended up graduating with a degree in communication. And moving forward, man, this is something I want to do more often and really get into. So we have the opportunity to do it, and we're gonna give it a go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ability to have a long form discussion nowadays is something that will continue to grow. I think that people weren't able to share their opinions in a way where they could have a discussion at any time. And now with the ability, I think it'd be foolish not to take advantage of it.
I think so too. I think the ability to have long conversations, it gives people the opportunity to learn so much more. We live in a world where sound bites are king. You take something that's 8 or 9 seconds long, and a person becomes defined by that sound bite. And I think that's an inaccurate representation of a lot of people and a lot of situations and events that take place. I think that's an unfair way to view the world. I think there's a lack of understanding. So I think it's important to have conversations like this and to really move the discussion forward rather than trying to keep it stagnant or move it in reverse in some ways with the soundbite world that we live in.
Yeah. Yeah. Social media is good for a lot of things, but a lot of people, it has made a lot of people a lot more lonely as well. And addressing that is not easy because a lot of people still just, I think it's always good to visit the Twitter world and Instagram and all. It's good to visit there, but I don't think anybody wants to live there if they know what's good for them. It can be poisonous. I think that a lot of people take it too far, and the narratives that are explained on places like on platforms like that get distorted, and it's not fair a lot of times. And that's why I'm just glad to be having the opportunity to share my actual thoughts on a lot of things, where I can give people a full scope on why I have arrived at some of the opinions I have.
Yeah, I think it's I think that's super important to note, and the the amount of negativity that's out in the world, and the ability for people to really hide behind screens and to say these things that there's no, like, it's very, very difficult to say something like that to somebody in person. Like, it takes a very unique person to be able to do that. And I think with this social media world, and as we all know, like you and I, we grew up in it. Like, this is
Yeah.
something that's like second nature to us. And um, to grow up in it and understand it are two different things, I think. And that distinction is important because we may grow up in it, but we don't know everything about it. We're still learning how it affects people.
Yeah.
And the negative and positive effects it can have on society. We're more interconnected than ever, but are we really that connected in
Yeah.
terms of person to person and real true relationships that that mean a lot to people, that was the norm before all of this happened. You had to talk to people, you had to form relationships and have real conversations about things. And to some extent, I think, like you touched on, that's gotten lost somewhere in between. And the more we're able to get back to it, I think the more positive and the more understanding we'll be able to gain moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes it hard to find a common ground for a lot of people. I think that generational gaps are shrinking at an alarming rate. I think that a 40-year-old, I'm 24, I think that a 40-year-old and I have, I mean, more in common than me and somebody that's 40 and me. We have a lot more in common than someone 16 years younger than me will have when I'm 40. So to look at the difference, the generational gaps are going to shrink, and these kids that are growing up glued to their iPads, I'm not exactly sure what the future holds for them, but it's going to be something that we're going to have to be very careful about because we don't want them to be too addicted to things like social media where, I mean, maybe it's out of our hands already, but it's a long discussion that we'll kind of see where we sit as time goes on, because it's an experiment just like anything else. Like, no one knows where it's going. A lot of people's jobs are to find out exactly how to get people more addicted to their phones and more addicted to social media. And I mean, once I was just looking at it the other day. I was actually listening to Joe Rogan talk to I think it was Reggie Watts, where they were talking about how when Facebook took over Instagram, every like fourth or sixth post or something became an ad. And it's like they're no longer in like
Mm-hmm.
chronological order. And it's like, well, why aren't they in chronological order? It's because now that they know all that information about you, they put them in the order that they think will bring the most attention. And so you'll have to keep opening your phone, and there will be new posts constantly. It's something to think about. And I think that especially a lot of parents are completely unaware of that. They don't understand exactly how much thought goes into how the messages are being portrayed to their kids, and who's having the influence of those messages.
Yeah, and my question was going to be to you is, at what point is it the parents' responsibility, right? As young kids, we're gluing these kids to the iPads so they quit crying so that they're not doing whatever. So at what point does it shift from the parents' responsibility to kind of the kids' responsibility when they're old enough to understand kind of, hey, maybe this isn't for me, or where is, I don't think that there's a clear shift there, but I mean, I don't know. You may have some other opinion on that.
Well, I'd say that, I mean, there's a lot of the nature versus nurture not argument. I guess it's an argument in psychology is as old as the field itself. And I think that as time goes on and as I spend more time learning more about psychology, I think that I learn more and more that it's a lot more about nurture than it is nature. And I mean, there's a lot of things that are nature, obviously. I mean, someone's ability like to grow a beard, for example, like you got a big manly beard and I just got a little goatee. But I mean, that part is definitely nature. But as far as nurture goes, I mean, there are a ton of statistics showing how where you grow up, who you grow up around. I mean, it all directly influences you. And I think with little kids, I think that a lot of it has to be taught at home. And if parents are glued to their iPads and their laptops and they work all the time, their kids they do what their parents do more often than they do what they're very impressionable, and they soak up information like a sponge. So it's going to be interesting to see um, where the world goes. I think today there's a lot of people that don't have the moral structure that had been passed down from generations. I think it's not as necessary because we do live in such a safe time, and in a lot of ways, there's definitely ways that it's unsafe. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, if you chose to, you could sit in your house all day and watch Netflix if you want, and most likely nothing's going to happen to you. So I
Yeah,
think we
you're
live
gonna
in
be
about the same.
safe.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that, I mean, I think that what parents do is the single most influential thing that's going to happen to a kid. And I think that it's just important that parents still put their kids through some tough times as far as giving them responsibility. And if they don't have any responsibility as a young kid, then they're not going to grow to learn from the responsibility they've been given, which we learned. I mean, I was a responsible individual in some sense my whole life. I wasn't a kid that partied a lot growing up, but once I got to JUCO, my responsibilities hit me very hard. And I'm sure you feel
Yeah,
similar.
very much so. So I want to backtrack just for a second. Um, with the algorithmic world that we live in, Facebook and Instagram and all these complex computer things. Um, in my studies, we talked a lot about social media and what influences those things can have. And when you like 100 things on Facebook, I actually deleted my Facebook after learning some of this stuff. But and if you have Facebook, that's great, but not for me. Anyway, if you like 100 things on Facebook, the algorithm actually knows you and your personality better than your top 3 friends. If you like 100 things, that's it. So it's very simple, but that's how, when you're looking at ads and targeting and the things popping up on your feed that you see, that is all based on the things that you like and the things that you have proven that you like. So it's all very complex, and it's meant to kind of keep you in that loop and keep going back and keep you kind of addicted to whatever is happening. I think it's just an interesting note. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
understand how that stuff works, and so if you do understand it, and you might take a little bit of a different approach with the things that you're putting on there, the things you're liking, like if you're going to do it at all, at least be specific with it. You know what I mean? Because that's what's going to be on your stuff. So if you're liking negative stuff, man, there's going to be more negativity up there, and it's just going to can constantly revolve that cycle. And to your point about nature and nurture, I think it's important to note too the studies in psychology that are done on identical twins, and that discussion of these two people are essentially, right, like maybe not 100%, but like as close as you can get to being identical genetically. And they can grow up in if they're separated or something, and they grow up in 2 different environments, then that whole nurture thing plays a big part, because you see major differences,
Absolutely.
major differences, and in personalities and in physical form. Even those things can affect your mind and how your development occurs, and all there's major ramifications for things like that. So I think that those studies are interesting. But now to kind of get back to where the conversation was with junior college and responsibility, yeah, I made my decision. So I live in Central Oregon, and I made the decision just to move to Scottsdale, Arizona, about a month before the school season started in the fall and everything. And so I didn't know anybody. I don't know a single person in Arizona when I decided to go. And my dad and I hopped in a car. I had my stuff, and then we drove down. And I got there, and he was there a day or two, and helped me set up and everything. And was like, okay, see you later.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Here goes nothing.
the amount of it's funny. It's funny to think about now, because talking about the responsibilities and things. Yeah, when you're on your own at 18 years old and they're just you're just like thrown out there in a new place, you don't know anybody. You don't have anybody to rely on. So it's like you learn quickly, not only about yourself, but the things that you like, the things that you don't like, how you're going to live your life. You start laying those bricks for the foundation very early on within your first week. And, and there's things that you have to take care of, right? There's nobody going to be looking over your shoulder. Hey, you need to be at practice early. Hey, you need to be at school. Hey, you need to, get good grades, do your homework. There's nobody watching over you. There's no babysitting going on. And if you don't do it, like, you can lose baseball. For us, that's what it was. But for other people, I mean, they can lose. Maybe they have a lot more to lose than what we had.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's crazy because, Colin had shared that story with me at some point in our past, but I mean, our stories are extremely similar. I graduated high school. I had an offer to a Division II school in Kansas City. And I realized, I mean, I'd lived there 18 years, same house. And I said, nah, I really just want to try something new, expose myself to a new environment, which, I mean, that was just me not knowing what else to do. And I just said, I'm just going to move to Arizona. I had a contact that got me in, that had a coach of mine had his son play at SEC, where he was just like, hey, if you want, I can make a call for you. I can't make you any promises, but he'll be fair. If you make the team, you do. If it's up to you if you want to do it. And I was like, I got to my graduation party after my senior year of high school, and people were asking me, where are you going? Where are you going? And I still didn't know. And I was like, well, geez, like I can't keep telling one person one thing, another person a different thing. I just started saying Scottsdale Community College. I was like, I'm going to Scottsdale, Arizona. Like, I don't know. I guess I'll just go there. And so I kind of wandered into it in a way. I didn't really know what else to do. I played 1 year of varsity baseball, 2-time JV player of the year, probably the only person in the history of any sport to do that. And I got to Scottsdale, and I immediately knew that I was out of my comfort zone. I was living with 2 random roommates from the team, and I got to practice, and I was very skinny. I was an all-state pitcher in high school, and I was honorable mention DH in high school. So a lot of people really thought I was going to be a pitcher, and ended up I did both for the fall and got redshirted. Didn't even make the team. I mean, Michael Jordan said he got cut from his high school basketball team making JV his freshman year. Well, I guess I got cut from the team my first year pretty much. And I think that first year I got thrown into the fire. I mean, our strength and conditioning, our practice schedule, there are no rules. Like the NCAA and the NJCAA have nothing in common. Almost. I mean,
it's a free for all. Wild West out there in JUCO baseball.
Yeah. And I think a fun fact about our league was that it was wood bat. We were in a wood bat JUCO league, which, I mean, there's, I think, 2 conferences in the country that do that. So for anybody actually trying to get the real experience, I couldn't recommend the Arizona JUCO baseball league any higher than I am right now. It's amazing. But yeah, I think Colin and I share so many things like that, where we both kind of just wandered into a new experience like that, and we saw the level of responsibility that we took on, and we learned so much from it that we just have a lot in common, and we're very like-minded. And yeah, I'll be interested to see how this entire thing goes.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a unique opportunity for me, and I mean, we're in the middle of this COVID era, right? So we live in different places, so we're doing this remote anyways. But, yeah, to your point, I think it's this COVID era, having everything happen the way it's happened, has given me a new perspective, and also kind of opened some doors and things in terms of things like this, and having the ability to talk more at length, and not having somewhere to be all the time. And it's just kind of really slowed things down. And so I'm excited, and we are very like-minded in the sense that we have very, very similar stories, and we went about our business in a similar fashion. And I hope that as we move forward, people can kind of see that we didn't try to take anything for granted. We didn't want to take the shortcuts, and we earned everything we ever got. And I think it's important that you shared your red shirt story. And I mean, me being a guy, I went to 4 schools. I had a lot to prove every year that I went to school, and I didn't have. I call the redshirt year an opportunity because I didn't have that opportunity. And there's 2 ways of looking at it for guys. Some guys come out of it a lot better, and they took that year. They got bigger, they got stronger, they got mentally better. Maybe they were able to make some things click mentally, and all of that can translate. And for you, it did. And I think that that's an important thing to note, because for you, you took that opportunity and you were able to make yourself better physically, better mentally, and take those steps. Now, for other people, that's not the case. And we tried to do it. We tried to earn everything we got, and we were able to play baseball for a long time. And yeah, we are very similar minded, but I think it's important to understand that there is some things that we look at differently. And I know we're going to talk a lot about not only those things, but we're going to talk about surrounding yourself with like-minded people and what that can do versus what surrounding yourself with people of different opinions and perspectives can do. And all of it is very important. You should have both in your life. And I think moving forward, I know, like I said, we're going to talk about those things and really try to understand the balance of like-minded people versus not, and what those people have to offer you, and the learning curve of a different perspective, and the approach that people can take that we don't see as often as we should, or maybe that we used to in the past before the social media stuff. The approach people can take to just saying, hey, I respect people who don't think like me, but get into why that is, a mutual understanding of we don't have to agree, but let's have a conversation about it. Let's understand each other's reasons why you think that way, because you may make a point, even though I don't agree with you, you may make a point that I'm like, hey, I'm coming at this with an open mind and I respect that. And I just don't, it's unfortunate because we don't see a lot of that, right? We see these Twitter wars that are back and forth, and they're sending stuff in 140 characters or whatever it is now, and it's like there's no respect. It's everybody just trying to get the last word. Everybody just trying to just outsqueak the other person in the argument instead of approaching it with more of an open mind and something that like a mutual respect, a mutual try to a mutual thought process of learning, I guess, and where that other people stand and how they think.
Yeah. And I think I got to give a shout out to Jordan Peterson, who is my favorite psychologist, who says, whoever you're talking to, just assume that they know something that you don't know. Because like you were saying, like, we are like-minded, and the fact that we both are willing to listen, we both have a growth mindset. And even if our opinions aren't the same, there's something to learn from somebody else being there. No matter what, you put just like I was saying earlier, you put yourself in a new environment, you are going to learn something. You put yourself around new people. If you choose, you're going to learn something. If you go into it with some sort of mindset that you're around these people, then you're better than them or you're smarter than them, you're not going to learn much. You're going to probably come off in a way that that isn't going to benefit you or anybody around you. And every single day is an opportunity to be a positive impact to the people around you and your community. And that's completely up to you. That comes back to responsibility. Like, I didn't realize during my time playing baseball how important it was to basically just have some sort of leadership quality, where whether or not you're a typical leader, each individual has an opportunity to impact a team positively and play a role. And I think that's what we're losing today in a lot of ways, is people being willing to play a role. even on a baseball team. Like, I mean, this is going to be an example that really sheds light on how small of a role you can have, but one that actually just can be extremely meaningful as well. I remember when I was bat boy for the Royals, after all the games, whenever they would win, we would sit down, we would be right in the dugout waiting for him to come down, and I'd be, you know, fist bumping him, good game, good game. And I would tell that to some of the people that that didn't play that day or didn't pitch that day. And I remember one time, I don't remember who it was. Even if I did, I wouldn't probably say it, but I said it and they're like, I didn't do anything. And that was, I think, in 2013 or 2014, before they knew that they were going to eventually end up in the World Series. And it was like, you didn't do nothing. Like, you were out there for BP. Like, that's not nothing. You're a part of a team.
Not nothing.
Every single, you're only as good as your weakest link. And I think that's extremely true. And anybody who's tested it, been on teams their whole life, had the failures, had the successes, knows that everybody makes a difference. And your actions do matter. Every action you do, it affects the people around you, whether you know it or not.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's great. And I think, I mean, you can maybe shed some light on this too. This is just how I think about it. We live in a world where not only do the role thing is kind of in question, right? People are scared to be playing roles that maybe they don't want to be playing or things like that. But it's really hard for me because I feel like we live in a world where people are scared to assign a role to somebody. People are scared to take the responsibility and be like, hey, this is your role. Now, should you accept it, which you may or may not, you should play that role to the best of your abilities. Now, if that's your role, that's what you should do. Well, we don't have a lot of people saying, hey, this is your role. This is what you do. We to relate it to sports, we see participation trophies just being handed out right at the end of seasons. Nobody, like, growing up for us, at least for me, you know, we had an MVP of the team. We recognized the people who did great things in that season or whatever. And so we live in this world of participation trophies, and I think that there's a direct link to nobody having a role and everybody just being okay with not. And what it's doing is creating chaos in not only, you know, workplaces and different things where your role may not totally be assigned, and we see this in more flexible roles, you know, athletics especially, and even coaching, on the coaching end of things, where you don't really know what your role is. And so, and the people that are above you aren't making that known either. And so what that's doing is creating conflict in ways that we've never, I don't think, really dealt with in this way. Like, we always have conflict. There's everlasting conflict. But I don't know. If that's just for me, the way I think about it and how it works is, people aren't willing to accept roles that they don't want. And there's a fear of assigning roles because of how they're going to make someone feel, even though it may better the team or better, you know, the business or whatever the case may be. I don't know if you want to shed any light on that at all, but
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I think that people are a little bit less honest nowadays. I think that college has confused a lot of people because I really do, because it used to be a place, and I've studied this in a number of ways from different psychological points of view. And I think that a lot of what college is now, I mean, college is obviously extremely expensive. Everybody comes out of it with debt. And when that's the case, people are going there and they can live a normal life with loans and other grants and other things like that. But then they get out and it's like, well, what do I do now? Like, during my time in college, personally, I went to a few different universities, Mississippi State, which was in Starkville, in the deep South. compared to State, which is Kansas. And I mean, they were completely different experiences, but they had the same underlying effect of, it's kind of like you still are the only one that is responsible for you, where it's like, I mean, that's kind of obvious, but it's not as simple as it sounds, because you get to college and you think that they're going to challenge your viewpoints and they're going to break you down as an individual. Well, for me, it was a lot of, I was also an athlete, so maybe it was, I mean, I don't know, take it as it is, but it was like the teachers there weren't challenging me at all. It was like I was just learning how to do a test and I could do it. And I ended up basically relearning a lot of what I learned in college from the internet. And I really don't see
Mhm.
that college is getting the point where, like, my point is that college, I think, is supposed to break you down and it's supposed to challenge what you think. And once you finish, you've been built up as something stronger. And I don't think that's being done. I think that college is a little too soft for now, and I think that if you stay at college long enough, for the most part, you're going to get a degree. And that's kind of what you're saying about, like,
Yeah.
participation trophies. That's what it's created among us. Like, people now, they don't take constructive criticism well, nor do they even hardly ever get it. I mean, people don't need a lot of
Yeah.
encouragement, but they don't get a lot of genuine encouragement. People don't listen like they used to. And I mean, I don't, and when I say that, it's not like a direct statement. It's just in general, college has become something that is not what I don't think it was intended to be. I don't think that the value is
I
there for how much you pay.
No, I think so. I think you're right. I think I went to a private university in Portland, and then I went to a public Division II university at Western Oregon, and they were vastly different. Okay, obviously, one was Catholic, one was a public school, and obviously, you have your theology classes, and you have these things that you don't have in your normal day-to-day public school. But with that being said, what I ran into with the communication field, and I took classes. I took a lot of different classes. I tried to, for my electives, I like tried to branch out as much as I could, because I like tried to gain a broader knowledge of the world around me, what's going on, business, psychology, um, obviously theology, uh, because of Portland. There's different things where I was able to kind of dive in on different topics. But my struggle with the whole college thing is, and I hope you'll touch on this too, is the like-mindedness of professors and how that affects what they're teaching and how that affects the experience in college. I think because we have professors who, right, if you think about what a professor does, how they train, right, they graduate with a bachelor's degree, they go right back to school, master's, doctorate, and then they go to teaching. So what essentially we've created is a vacuum, an education vacuum for professors. Now, some people, they go do other things and then they become a professor, and that's cool. And I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about those people who they just climb the ladder straight up. And then what you get, though, is like-mindedness with teachers and professors in which they've never been outside of the academic bubble. So
Hmm.
they approach everything from this academic bubble standpoint, and you'll go from class to class, teacher to teacher, but they all came up in that same bubble. And so
Yeah.
that's hard, because you're saying, it's kind of this, it's like each class in, now shout out to my teachers. I had some great teachers, and I'm not trying to bag on them at all, but it does somewhat create just a cycle of the same information. And unless that teacher is very specific in how they're going about it, and maybe they have experiences outside of just your everyday academic bubble, then that you're just recycling information, no matter the class, no matter the specific subject of that class. And then, like you said, it's like you know the basics, and unless you're really trying to go outside of that, the basics, and you're doing your own work and you're looking into things that you're not even like really going to be talking about in class, and you're doing those different things, just based out of a desire to learn, you're going to know the basics of your field coming out of college. And then you get the participation trophy, which is the degree. And what does that degree mean now? It doesn't mean a lot.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it, like there's more degrees ever, and it's just like it doesn't carry the same weight it did 20 years ago. You know what I mean? 30 years ago. If you went to college and you got a degree, you were set up. That's not the case anymore. You got to make your own way after you graduate, unless you're going to go back to school and continue climbing the academic ladder. That's different. But for people who
And
just get
accruing
bachelor's
debt.
degrees and stop. Yes, and accruing debt. God, that's a whole other conversation, right? And
And people are talking
if your
about
parents make
limited
just
debt.
enough money, yeah, it's gonna take. I played baseball with a kid growing up. His dad, I believe he played golf at the University of Portland. Ironically, I don't know why we went to the same school, but he played golf there. He was, shoot, we were probably 14 or 15 at the time. He had paid off his student loans, and he had graduated college and like met his wife, and then they had kids. Like this, it wasn't like he had a kid when he was at the University of Portland. You know what I mean? Like he had like kind of just spanned it out, and it took him, I don't know, what is that? At least 20 years to pay off his debt. That's crazy. We're expecting
Yeah.
these kids to come out with $150,000 in debt, and you're like, okay, good luck. That's hard to
Yeah,
do.
that's a lot. A lot of people need that much debt to get a guaranteed job out of college. But I mean, it's part of the new struggle too. I mean, a lot of people are more willing to hustle and kind of figure out something else and do something. But it's a very complicated subject because of how different the world is now. I mean, just in general, the way that technology has taken over has completely changed all of that. And I think that it's hard for a teacher to keep up with the times. It's not like they're in the
I
field the
agree.
same way that like for me as in psychology, it's not like a professor is in the field the same way that a clinical psychologist is that works one-on-one therapy all day long for their full-time job. And so it's really hard to keep up with that. And I mean, I had an internship for psychology in Kansas at a PRTF, a psychiatric residential treatment facility. And I think I learned more in the 2.5 months there and that I for my internship than I did, in my undergrad. And that's also the type of person I was. I was plan A the whole time, which was baseball, but I still loved my psychology classes and I had a lot of really great teachers. But I think, I mean, no matter what, in anything in life, you're going to get out what you put in. And I think you know that, but it also is something to bring up with the way that universities are now. I don't know exactly what the way forward is, but I think it's got to be something else. I don't think that we have it right as is.
I think we're failing. I mean, if you want my honest opinion, I bounced around a lot. And so because of me bouncing around, and there's different, it applies to all of my experiences. But the ability to bounce around paid, I think, more positives in the long run because I was able to gain perspective from each different place. And I was in different places. I was in different schools, private, public, um, you know, religious, non-religious. You get the whole idea.
Hmm.
And I think we're failing. I really truly think we're failing because, like you said, we're not challenging people. We're not putting people in uncomfortable situations and allowing them to grow. And you see this all the time in athletics and coaches trying to put players in uncomfortable situations so that they can grow and be more comfortable when things might hit the fan.
Being
You know what I mean?
uncomfortable.
And
Yeah.
yeah. When things are uncomfortable, you're more comfortable. Like that's the whole goal in the athletic world.
So important. Yeah.
And that's why it's why you do training and everything. And that's not what we're doing in schools. And
No.
we're not getting people uncomfortable to the point where it forces them to learn and grow. And now this is double sided. I think people are so uncomfortable being uncomfortable that they run from the opportunity of trying to learn something. And so
Yeah.
there's a a mental shift that if we could make in the student body of like, hey, it's okay to be uncomfortable, but like we can take something from this.
Yeah.
And then there's this idea from the school's perspective of like, hey, we can make them uncomfortable, not in the sense of, like something weird. I don't know. People might assume that, but like challenge their minds. You know what I mean? And make them uncomfortable in their mind and be like, hey, this is challenging to the way I view the world. And if we apply that, but maybe this comes from the way we grade things, because everything, right? We've been in school, we've done this. Everything matters. GPA matters. Your grade on an assignment, it may be worth 50% of your grade. The one project, one paper. And like to put all of that weight on something, on an assignment, is almost counterproductive, because they're not learning the material to learn the material and try to understand things that may be challenging to them and their viewpoints. They're just doing it so they can get the grade. And so like,
Yeah.
I want people to understand, I'm just as guilty of this as anybody. I graduated college with a
Same.
4.0, and to some degree you have to do it to survive. So there's that whole thing. You have to just be like, hey, I need to get this project done so I can move on. I got 1,400 projects I'm working on, and this one is just not at the utmost importance. So we're just going to try to do this and move on. And so I think it's a caseload issue from the schools. I think it's an approach issue on the side of the students. And I think it's a grade issue, truthfully, because it's just not conducive to learning and creativity. And so if we make some sort of shift on both sides, like I said, everything's double-sided. Both sides can kind of make that adjustment. I think you would start to see more success out of kids and out of professors as well. I think that everybody can benefit from these shifts.
You're right. And I think that those shifts all are kind of, those are all specific examples that I saw as well in my time in college. And I think that a way to look at it is that the work doesn't feel meaningful. Like when a teacher assigns something, like you go home and it's like, geez, a 3-page paper. Like, why does it have to be 3 pages? Like, if you can come up with a coherent paper, that professor is going to love to grade that paper. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, like, look at the way this is structured. Like, look at how this person can write. Like, this person actually is going to be useful at a job one day. That's what you should be pushed to do. You should be, I mean, if you can get me as a student to want to write something, to want to be in class, like, make it interesting. It doesn't have to be a cookie cutter thing. Like, each professor should bring something to the table. And I'm not saying that they don't, but for me, like, I look online at all these interesting people on YouTube that, like, I watch psychology lectures on YouTube, like at least once a day. And it's just a lecture on the same people that they went over in my other classes. Like, I've learned more about Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud that I had all throughout my college days. Like, I can listen to them actually say it themselves. Like, why do I have a teacher explaining it to me that is reading from a textbook? Like, I can read the textbook. Like, I think the work doesn't feel meaningful. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's just an important thing. Like, I think, to your point, I think you brought up a very interesting scenario. The tech world that we live in, right? The modern tech world that we live in, it allows you to go search out the real sources of what you're talking about. And so it's like, your teacher is just, I respect teachers. I truly respect what they do. It's just like, but they're regurgitating the information.
Yeah.
And there can be things that are lost in translation there. And I understand that they have a curriculum, and they're trying to get the class to a certain point.
There's only so much wiggle room.
Right. But at the same time, when you can just go watch a video, like you're saying, of the people that you're learning about, why wouldn't I go to the original source and just be like, yeah, this makes sense? You know what I mean? Or maybe this doesn't make sense, and then you can go to your teacher and ask.
And it kind of comes back to political correctness too, where, like, we haven't talked about that yet. So I say comes back to, in a way that everyone has seen the effect that political correctness has had on the college campus. And if you haven't seen it, then you haven't been looking.
Yeah.
Because
Or you just haven't spent any
like
time on a college campus.
Right. Like I'm not a hater on any LGBT individuals. I think that if that's the way you are, go ahead. Like I support you and I think that you have the right to do so. But I also think that when you look at that kind of thing, you have to understand that to challenge someone's opinion, you have to be willing to offend them. Like if I'm having a conversation with someone from the LGBT community and I refer to someone that is a man that has become a woman and I say he, and they are willing to have a discussion, I am absolutely more than happy to accommodate to their to whatever they want me to do. That's not the point.
And
But
admit your
I think
mistake in the moment.
exactly 100%. And I think that a lot of the time people don't get that opportunity when they don't actually communicate with these individuals. And a lot of it goes to social media where it's a statement that is taken oftentimes out of context. And I think that just people get so offended so easily when people really don't mean to hurt them in the way that it comes off when it's more of a snippet or it's not a dialogue. And I think that the dialogue is a big part of what's missing and making things meaningful, and it's excluding people from sharing their opinion. Like I want to hear, like as a psych major and I minored in sociology, I took a class called intersectionality where it basically says like someone's opinion matters more because like, well, they're oppressed, like if they were like gay or something, it's like their opinion matters more because they're gay. No, it actually matters the same because they're a human being. Like let's value everybody's opinion and actually give them a chance to speak. And if they and everybody's also got to go back to what we were saying earlier, assume somebody else knows something that you don't. Check your ego at the door. At a place like a college, everyone's trying to learn. That's the goal. What's actually the goal? You know, it's not to hear the teacher speak the whole time and have nobody say anything. I mean, there were a lot of classes where nobody raised their hand for a question. Nobody wanted to answer. Nobody wanted to say the wrong thing. If you say the wrong thing, there's a chance somebody's going to capture it on Snapchat and embarrass you, you know? Like, who knows?
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
it's
it's
a lot of things people are scared to speak up and have a well-educated opinion on something.
And I think you made some great points. I think the overall ability for people to have dialogue, it goes back to our soundbite kind of world that we were living in. It goes back to that conversation we had at the beginning of people have to be willing to have that dialogue. Now, if I make a mistake and I say something wrong, I get it. I will own that 100%. And that's not an issue for me. I can do that. And like you said, check your ego at the door, man. You don't know everything. And you don't know people's experiences. You don't know how people are doing that day, man. That stuff can change day to day, man. There might be something that happened last night that they're still trying to process today. And so check your ego at the door. I think that's a great way of putting it. And I think we don't understand everything, and that's what we need to realize. And there's a lot of things that people like to try to take the shortcuts to go watch, I don't know, man. It's like seeing something online and thinking you understand it, right? Until you really experience it and have a true conversation or experience it in person or immerse yourself in it, you truly don't have that experience and that understanding to the full extent. In my opinion, I think that's something people should seek out. They should seek out different opinions and that using that growth mindset. And of course, like in the communication world, like that, how people talk and how people, not only with their words, but with their bodies and understanding and trying to approach everything with a very open-minded viewpoint, not only just like me and you, but culturally understanding values of other people and understanding those values of where they're from, if they're not from here or if they have heritage elsewhere. I think all of those things should be taken into account. And I know that's a lot of information. You can't do that for everybody, but just having a general understanding of, hey, I don't know everything. I don't know this person's story at all. And I should try to understand that better. I think that's just an important outlook on life in general. And like I said, there's a lot of people in this world. You can't know everything about everyone. But just having that approach can get you so much farther to having a dialogue on both ends. If you're the offended or if you're the offender, like, hey, let's talk about it. There's growth in that.
Yeah.
There's the sharing of those thoughts can not only help you in that moment and maybe you learn something in that moment, but you can now approach another person who may be, in the same community, or who knows, maybe they have similarities that you can draw the similarities to. Now you can approach that person differently. Now you can make a difference, right? You can approach
Yeah.
that more educated and better. And I think that that's an important thing moving forward, that people hopefully begin to understand, and just try to respect people for who they are, man, no matter what. It's I don't know, everybody's human, man. We're all going through stuff, no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, you're going through stuff at some point.
Absolutely. And I think empathy is extremely important, especially on campuses now where, I mean, mental health crisis is at an all-time high. Prescription drug use is at an all-time high. And it's not, I mean, it might be one of the safer times to be alive, but it's never easy. And at all times,
No.
any person is going through something or knows somebody that is going through something that could pretty much make their life almost a living hell at any point, because they could just spend their time thinking about that, where it's like there's a major crisis
Mhm.
going on around you almost at all times. And I think that you have to find a way to grow from it at all times also, but it's always complicated, and nothing is
Always.
ever how it seems at the surface. Um, I think that over time, looking at history, people have been oppressed since the beginning of time. Hierarchies have existed from the beginning of time, and playing a
Mhm.
role is as important now as it ever has before. But people look at at the internet and they see all these people that are living their best life, quote unquote, and it's really hard to imagine, like, oh man, all these people, it seems like, look at all these like beautiful people that are just out here like at the beach or
Hey,
drinking on the
let
golf
me let me
course.
just make a comment on that. That shit is fake.
Yeah,
Like, I
that's
don't
not
know
real
who's gonna
life.
hear this. I don't know who's gonna hear this, man. Whoever needs that is fake. Okay, like, it's crazy. Man, I've experienced some of this stuff, and it's, man, doing things for content, to me, isn't is not that's not real life. That's not real
Yeah.
life. That's not who we are. We're trying to like better ourselves as human beings. And I appreciate you pointing it up. And like I said, I don't know who's gonna hear this. I don't know who's gonna see this. But if you needed to hear it, you I hope that you understand, because, man, it's not real. And it's a crazy thing. But you can't sit there and compare. You can't. It doesn't do you any good, man. I try to limit my social media now. That's something I really try to do, because it's easy. Anybody can fall into that trap of trying to compare to other people, trying to, hey, look at this person or that person, or
I
look
mean,
what
look
they
at
have, or
Kylie
look what I
Jenner.
don't have. Yeah.
Look at what she's done. She was I mean, her life has never been normal. I mean, she doesn't get that. Not that she doesn't understand it. She doesn't get a normal life. Like, from the time
No.
she was, it wasn't going to be normal for her. And I mean, I don't want to sound mean by saying this, but like, obviously, like, she doesn't look the way she used to, and I don't know what that does to somebody. I really couldn't ever hope to. I mean, it's a tough life for her. Yeah, maybe she has
Yeah,
countless
absolutely.
dollars, maybe she has countless followers, and there's some good things that come with that, but I wouldn't want that for me. And I wouldn't want to be a social media influencer where people know every little detail of my life. I mean, I,
No,
I don't
I think
I
that's
think
a very valid point.
it's a fake world, and it's very tough for any individual that does live that life. They're the one person that does just post things and make, and I'm not saying all she does is post things and she makes money. She's a very successful businesswoman. But what I am saying is that there's a lot of people that think that their job is to work out and post pictures of themselves working out, and it's just not real. And I don't think that that's a very meaningful or rewarding thing. Like, I mean, it's not, who am I to say? But I mean, that's just my observation, and that's the consensus I get from the mental health crisis that is overly apparent.
Hmm. I think so too. I think, I think, I think you nailed it on the head, man. It's a hard thing, but people, like I said, it's easy to compare, and it's easy to be like, to find, from my perspective, it's easy to find a false sense of purpose. And in that world, right? You can get lost in that world. You could live essentially your whole life in that world. Like, you can make money there. You can, talk to people there. You can buy things there. Like, you can do all of these things that you wouldn't do in a normal store, essentially. Like, you can do those things there. You can do those things in the social media sphere. And I think it's dangerous. It's dangerous because there's a lot of information. There's a lot of spread of negativity. You get into the whole idea of people stealing your data. There's a lot of things, and I'm sure we'll unpack this moving forward. But yeah, there's just a lot there, and like I said, I don't know who needs to hear it, but it's fake, and don't get too caught up in it. That's it's a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, and it is a little worrisome for the future to see where it goes. But I mean, I don't know. The inner conspiracy theorist in me wonders what would happen if the internet went down. I wonder what some of those people would really think if that did happen. If there's no more internet, and it's like, well, what are those people going to do? Who are they going to fall back on? Who do they have in their life? I don't know.
That's a rabbit hole. That's a
Yeah,
that's a
it is a
rabbit
rabbit
hole.
hole.
Right?
I don't know.
Because you
I'm
can
just
start
saying.
speculating. I don't know either.
Yeah, it's a speculation topic, but it is crazy because the world is changing faster than ever, and it's hard to keep up. But I think that the best way to go about it now is to have a growth mindset and understand that you don't know everything. And I think that
I agree.
humility is something that we need to bring back because a lot of
Yep.
people carry their ego pretty high on their priority list. And I've been guilty of it, no doubt. But
Sure.
every day,
Everybody has, but you
yeah,
got to recognize it. You have to recognize it and say, hey, man, I was wrong, or this wasn't right, or whatever. Like, that's your humility piece, man. If you make a mistake, or if you're guilty of carrying your ego through the door, man, it's all right. I want you to know it's okay, but we got to learn from it. We can't keep defining insanity and just doing the same things over and over and expecting different results, man. We can't do it. We're not going to get anywhere. We're just going to run the hamster wheel forever. And yeah, just the growth mindset moving forward, and I think it's super important, and I hope people begin to understand it a little bit more.
yeah, yeah, no doubt. And going forward, I mean, I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to be going back to school, pursuing a further degree in psychology. I've been toying with the idea, seeing if I want to get some experience in the field or if I want to go back to school, try and give myself more opportunities within it. But it's really hard to even want to go back to school because I know the downfalls of it. And like going back to school is very attractive because I would love to get a doctorate. I'd love to have a master's and then get a doctorate, or just be able to impact people in that way where it's actually I have an opportunity to support myself financially, because now it's just hard. The economy is different than ever. I mean, there's more people making quick money than ever. It's hard to find a job that's going to last you a long time.
Yeah, and the expectation now is that it's not going to,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah, they talk about the statistics for our generation, and it being, you'll have 10, 15 jobs in your life. And my dad's worked the same job for 42 years.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? That's not around anymore. That's not
Yeah.
how. It's crazy. And with this ever-changing world we live in, man, it's always going to be It's interesting moving forward. I think we have a lot of unknowns. I think that's forever going to be the case. I think that's always been the case. Um, but we can't take fear into the unknown. You know what I mean? We
Hmm.
gotta just accept what we know, it's at the moment, man, and start moving forward and trying to progress to be better people, be better for each other, and be better for ourselves. So I
Yeah,
think it's
because life goes on. I mean, life goes
I
on.
think if we do better.
You cut out for a second there. What was that?
Oh, I was just saying if we do that, I feel like we're going to be in a better spot than the world that we were born into.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that increasing things like mindfulness, conscientiousness, all of that can go a long way on an individual level. Being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and understanding that if you do offend somebody, like, and they take it the wrong way, it's better to make it right. I mean, I think a lot of that's where humility comes into it. Like, make it right. There's a lot of people out there, and just because the one person that you offended, I mean, life goes on. Life will go on for them, for you, and it's not that deep.
No, no, I agree. I I agree, and I don't think I could have said it better myself, man.
Yeah.
But well, I gotta say, it has been a pleasure to shoot the inaugural podcast with you, Lou, and to whoever has watched it this far, man, whoever stayed with us for an hour, we appreciate you a ton. And hopefully, moving forward, man, we can start to dive deeper into some of these issues, man, that we talked about, and cover a lot more stuff. And all the best, man. And I always appreciate your time. And it's been a different podcast.
Likewise, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All righty, cheers.